Look closely at these meshing gears. While corporate safety goals often exist as abstract policies on paper, the reality of industrial machinery is entirely unforgiving. Flesh and bone offers zero resistance to kinetic energy of this magnitude. To regulate that violence, Indian law establishes a strict, non-negotiable statutory baseline. It is codified in Chapter 4 of the Factories Act, 1948. Before the law dictates how a machine operates, it identifies exactly who is responsible for it. Section 2N designates this person as the occupier, the individual holding ultimate control over the factory's affairs. Under Section 7A, that occupier bears absolute legal liability. The statute requires them to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of all workers, mandating safe plant design and risk-free systems of work. Merely having good intentions, generic training seminars, or issuing basic personal protective equipment cannot legally defend an occupier against a workplace amputation or a fatality. To build a legally defensible facility, you must execute a strict sequential audit of the engineering controls mandated from Section 21 through Section 26. Notice how the Act structures these requirements. It explicitly prioritizes physical, structural barriers over human administrative controls. The law assumes humans will make errors, so the machine itself must be rendered safe by design. Understanding these 6 specific sections provides the exact criteria required to maintain both operational compliance and your legal defensibility. The audit begins with Section 21. This statute lays down a foundational mandate: all moving machinery must be securely fenced. The law first targets the source of the energy itself, prime movers and their connected flywheels. This historic steam engine illustrates the sheer scale of a prime mover. Section 21 mandates that these massive energy generators must be physically isolated by safeguards of substantial construction, even if they are housed away from workers inside a dedicated engine room. The second target is transmission machinery. These are the shafts, wheels, pulleys, and driving belts that carry the mechanical motion from that prime mover to the working machines on the factory floor. Look at this network of overhead belts and exposed flywheels. Without physical barriers, the inherent risk of a worker being caught, dragged, or crushed by these moving transmission components is exceptionally high. To counter this risk, Section 21 attaches a critical legal condition. The physical safeguards must be, quote, constantly maintained and kept in position the entire time the machine is in motion or in use. Missing or removed machine guards equal an immediate audit failure. When an industrial accident occurs, a missing guard is often the leading cause of criminal liability for the occupier. Section 22 shifts the focus from physical barriers to human proximity. Since guards sometimes cannot remain in place during maintenance, the law imposes rigid administrative barriers to restrict human access to moving machinery. It establishes an absolute prohibition. Women and young persons are statutorily banned from cleaning, lubricating, or adjusting any prime mover or transmission machinery while it is in motion. There is an exceptionally narrow legal exception that allows human contact with moving machinery for essential diagnostics, belt shipping, or lubrication. The prerequisites for this exception are severe. The task must be performed by a specially trained adult male worker wearing tight-fitting clothing, which the occupier is legally obligated to provide. The administrative burden is heavy. This specific worker's name must be formally recorded in a prescribed register, and he must hold a specific certificate of appointment for the task. These 1948 statutory requirements form the precise legal origin for the modern lockout-tagout protocols and rigorous job safety analyses used today. Section 23 directly addresses the vulnerability of young laborers, seen here in this historical record. The Act was designed to eradicate the exploitation and injury of children in heavy industry. A young person, defined legally as anyone under 18, is categorically barred from operating prescribed dangerous machinery. The single permissible exception requires that the young person has received comprehensive training on the machine's hazards, and they must remain under the constant direct supervision of a highly experienced adult. The law inherently distrusts human behavior around active kinetic energy. It heavily favors the absolute exclusion of vulnerable demographics over the assumption that training will keep them safe. Section 24 dictates how a facility must manage the immediate interruption of mechanical power. Returning to this transmission network, early factories required mechanical striking gear to shift belts and cut power. The Act mandates these appliances prevent a belt from creeping back onto a live pulley, unexpectedly restarting the machine. On the modern factory floor, Section 24 serves as the direct legal mandate requiring suitable devices for cutting off power in emergencies, what we now call e-stops, in every single workroom. Moving from power control to spatial geometry, Section 25 addresses the specific risks of self-acting machines. Traversing automated parts, like robotic arms or automated textile looms, creates severe crushing hazards if a worker is caught between the moving component and a stationary object. To eliminate this risk, the statute enforces a precise numerical threshold. As this schematic shows, the outward or inward traverse of the machine cannot run within a distance of 45 centimeters from any fixed structure. This spatial threshold directly dictates your floor layouts, high-visibility tape lines, and physical barricades, ensuring an inescapable clearance zone where a human body cannot be crushed. Sections 24 and 25 impose spatial and temporal control over a machine's energy, transforming unpredictable operational hazards into strictly mathematically defined safe zones. Section 26 expands the scope of this compliance audit beyond the factory floor, reaching directly into your procurement department. The mandate requires that for any new power-driven machinery installed, every set screw, bolt, key, and gear must be completely encased or effectively guarded to prevent danger. As visualized here, this establishes a strict legal compliance gate long before a machine is ever turned on or installed on the floor. The statute enforces external consequences. Selling, letting on hire, or acting as an agent to procure non-compliant, uncased machinery is a directly punishable criminal offense. For the environmental, health, and safety manager, this creates an operational imperative. Safety audits must actively intercept purchasing decisions and vet equipment specifications before the purchase order is ever signed. If a factory accepts unguarded machinery at their loading dock, the occupier has effectively imported a statutory violation directly into their facility. The statutory floor is so rigid that it criminalizes the mere possession and installation of non-compliant engineering design. Sections 21 through 26 do not exist in isolation. Together, they form an interlocking legal shield that dictates the daily physical operations of every industrial facility in the country. Every modern safety procedure you write, from lockout-tagout protocols to the painted barricades on your floor, draws its enforceable power directly from this 1948 legislation. For factory managers and occupiers, this brings us back to the absolute liability established in Section 7A. You can delegate operational tasks down the chain of command to engineers and floor supervisors. But ultimate legal liability for those workers' safety cannot be delegated away. The ultimate goal of legal compliance is to bring all hazardous kinetic energy under total, absolute, predictable control. Under Chapter 4 of the Factories Act, when an operator is injured by exposed machinery, it is not legally viewed as an accident. It is codified negligence.